Have you ever had one of those weeks where your calendar looks like a battlefield? Back-to-back meetings, endless favors, dinners you didn't really want to go to, and somewhere in the middle of all that noise you realize you haven't had a moment to breathe. You keep saying yes, yes to your boss, yes to your friends, yes to your family, because you don't want to disappoint anyone, because that's what a good person does, right? But behind that smile and that polite nod, there's a weight, a silent burden that keeps growing heavier. And here's the truth, most of us don't want to admit. Sometimes saying yes to everyone else means saying no to ourselves. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I found myself in a situation I couldn't control. I was exhausted, mentally burned out. Every day felt like I was drowning in obligations I didn't even remember agreeing to. One night after another event I didn't want to attend, I sat alone in my car and asked myself, when did I stop living my life for me? That moment became the beginning of a transformation, and surprisingly, the answer didn't come from a self-help book or a motivational seminar. It came from an ancient philosophy that's more relevant today than ever, Stoicism. At its core, Stoicism teaches us one powerful idea. We don't control what happens outside of us, but we do control how we respond. It's not about escaping responsibility or isolating ourselves. It's about choosing wisely where our energy goes. And sometimes the wisest choice, it is a simple, courageous no. Let's pause here and ask ourselves something that Stoics like Marcus Aurelius might have asked. If you died tomorrow, would you be proud of how you spent today? Would you be proud of the endless meetings you didn't care about? The favors you said yes to out of guilt, not love? The time you gave away without truly being present? Saying no isn't about being selfish. It's about being strategic with your soul. It's about clearing the clutter so what actually matters can finally breathe. Think of your time and energy like a garden. Every yes is a seed you plant. But if you keep saying yes to everything, weeds, junk plants, demands that don't belong, you choke out the space for the flowers that truly matter. That's why the Stoics believed in self-governance. They didn't live reactively. They lived intentionally. They weren't slaves to guilt or the opinions of others. They guarded their time, not because they were cold, but because they understood something most of us forget. A person who tries to be everything to everyone ends up being nothing to themselves. Now, I'm not saying to become a hermit. We still need connection, kindness, and generosity. But real generosity must come from a full cup, not one that's always running dry. So what does saying no look like in real life? It might mean declining a dinner invite when your body needs rest. It might mean turning down a project that doesn't align with your values. It might mean stepping away from relationships that drain you more than they inspire you. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to pleasing others. But growth always feels uncomfortable. Freedom always comes with resistance. The next time someone asks you for your time, ask yourself, will this move me closer to the life I want? Am I doing this out of love or fear? If I say yes, what am I saying no to? Here's what I've learned on this journey. The world doesn't fall apart when you start protecting your peace. People who truly respect you will understand your boundaries, and those who don't, they were only benefiting from your lack of them. The Stoics weren't emotionally detached. They were clear-headed. They knew that the most precious resource we have is not money, status, or praise. It's our attention. And who we give it to determines the shape of our entire lives. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed, overcommitted, overextended, this is your sign. You don't have to keep saying yes just to feel worthy. You are already enough as you are. Start small. Say no once today where you usually wouldn't. Feel the discomfort, and then feel the clarity that follows. That's not weakness. That's you taking back your life. Because every no you say to the noise is a yes to your purpose. And that, my friend, is how you begin living like a Stoic in the modern world. If this message resonated with you, take a deep breath and let one no shape a better yes today. Your peace is worth it. Part 1. Reclaiming your time. The Stoic power of saying no. Have you ever noticed how easily our lives get hijacked? One moment, we're focused on something important, something that matters to us. And the next, we're pulled into someone else's urgency, someone else's priorities, someone else's noise. And we say yes, again and again. Even when deep down, something in us quietly whispers, "This isn't the best use of your time." So why do we do it? Because we've been conditioned to believe that saying yes is polite, that it makes us kind, generous, valuable. But here's a radical truth the Stoics knew over 2,000 years ago, one that's more relevant now than ever. You don't control everything that happens to you, but you always control how you respond. That's it. That's the key. Stoicism teaches that external events are not up to us. The world will pull at you from every angle. People will ask for your time. Demands will come. Interruptions will arrive. But what is within our power is what we choose to give our energy to. The modern world thrives on distraction, notifications, emails, open loops, 24/7 availability. But if we don't choose where our time goes, someone else will. And most of us have forgotten that we can choose. That saying no is not rude. It's responsible. It's how you reclaim your peace. It's how you guard your values. It's how you build a life that is intentional instead of reactive. Let me take you back to the 1st century. There was a Stoic philosopher named Epictetus, born a slave, later freed, and eventually revered as one of the greatest minds of his time. He lived with almost nothing. But you know what he did possess? An unshakable understanding of what was his and what wasn't. He once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." What does that mean in plain English? It means that life will throw things at us. Rejection, pressure, expectations. But how much those things control us? That's entirely up to us. So when someone asks something of you, your time, your energy, your agreement, you don't have to default to yes. You have the right to pause, to reflect, to ask, does this serve the person I'm trying to become? Saying no isn't just about boundaries. It's about alignment. Think of it like this. Your time is your currency, and you only get a limited amount to spend each day. If you spend it all on obligations that don't align with your values, your goals, your purpose, you go bankrupt. You feel exhausted, stretched thin, and worst of all, disconnected from yourself. But when you start to say no to what doesn't matter, something amazing happens. You begin to say yes to what does, yes to the creative work you've been putting off, yes to your health, yes to real rest, yes to the people and experiences that light you up, not drain you. Now let's make this real. Imagine this scenario. You're at work, already behind on a project that actually matters to your career. A coworker asks you to help with a task that's urgent, but not important. You feel that familiar tug, guilt, pressure, the fear of disappointing. What would the average person do? Probably say yes. Smile, agree, and push their own priorities further down the line. Again. But what would a Stoic do? They would pause. They would weigh the request against their values, and if it didn't align, they'd say a calm but firm, "No, I can't take that on right now." Not because they're selfish, but because they're focused. That's Stoic courage. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that protects your energy so you can live with intention. So here's the question I want you to consider today. What are you giving your yes to that's quietly stealing your peace? Maybe it's social events you no longer enjoy. Maybe it's people who only reach out when they need something. Maybe it's a habit of overcommitting at work, hoping to be seen as dependable, while slowly burning yourself out. Whatever it is, the solution doesn't lie in doing more. It lies in learning to do less and but better, to choose deliberately, to protect what's sacred to you, to remember that every yes carries a cost, and that your time is too precious to give away freely. Saying no can feel scary at first, especially if you're someone who's always tried to keep the peace. But here's what I've learned, and what the Stoics remind us of again and again. You were not born to live at the mercy of others' expectations. You were born to live in accordance with your values, and that begins when you remember. You don't need permission to protect your energy. You don't need approval to guard your focus. You don't need to say yes just to feel worthy. You already are. So today, try this. Say no once, just once, to something small, something that doesn't serve your deeper purpose. Feel the discomfort, and then feel the clarity that follows. That clarity, that peace, that's you. Reclaiming your life. One no at a time. Part 2. Protecting your peace, the art of setting boundaries. Have you ever walked away from a conversation or a meeting feeling drained? Like you gave away a piece of yourself, not because you wanted to, but because you didn't know how not to? You smiled. You nodded. You agreed to something that didn't sit right. And afterward, you asked yourself that all too familiar question. Why didn't I just say no? You're not alone. Most of us were never taught how to set boundaries. We were taught how to please, how to perform, how to keep the peace even when it costs us our own. But here's the thing the Stoics knew centuries ago, and it's something we desperately need to remember today. You cannot live in peace if you are constantly abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. Let's talk about boundaries. Not the cold, isolating walls we sometimes imagine, but healthy, compassionate limits. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect our energy, our time, and our mental well-being. They're not about pushing people away. They're about honoring your values, about choosing your peace over your people-pleasing reflex. Think of boundaries like fences around a garden. They don't block out the sunlight. They don't chase away the rain. They simply keep out what doesn't belong. The pests, the weeds, the chaos. Stoic philosophy isn't just about enduring hardship or staying calm in a storm. It's about clarity, knowing what you can control and what you must let go. And one of the most powerful things you can control is what you allow into your life. That's where boundaries come in. Seneca, one of the most well-known Stoics, once warned of the dangers of living without intention. He wrote, "If you really want to escape the things that harass you, what you're needing is not to be in a different place, but to be a different person." He didn't mean to change who you are, but to become someone who no longer allows chaos to run their life. Setting boundaries is how you become that person. So let's make this real. What does it actually look like to set boundaries? It starts with a word we're often afraid to say. No. Not the aggressive kind, not the dramatic slam the door kind, but the clear, respectful, self-honoring kind. When someone asks for your time, your help, your energy, and you feel that inner tension, you pause, you breathe, and instead of saying yes out of guilt, you say something like, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm not able to take that on right now." Or, "I need to protect some time for myself this weekend. Let's catch up another time." This isn't selfish. This is strategic. Because when you say no to what drains you, you're saying yes to what truly matters. Now here's the tricky part. Setting boundaries doesn't always feel good at first. It can feel uncomfortable, even scary, especially if you're used to being the person who says yes to everything. But the discomfort of setting a boundary is temporary. The resentment of not setting one? That lingers for a long time. And remember, boundaries don't have to be confrontational. Here are a few practical tips for setting boundaries that are healthy and effective. Use I statements instead of saying, "You always overwhelm me with tasks." Say, "I feel overwhelmed when I have too many things on my plate. I need more time to focus." This keeps the focus on your needs, not the other person's flaws, and it reduces defensiveness. Be clear and specific. Vague boundaries invite confusion. Instead of "I need space," try, I won't be checking work emails after 6 p.m. so I can recharge. Clarity is kindness. The more specific you are, the easier it is for others to understand and respect your boundaries. Practice consistency. A boundary isn't something you set once and forget. It's something you reinforce gently, calmly, repeatedly. If someone pushes past your limit, you don't need to escalate. You simply remind them, as I mentioned before, I'm not available for that right now. The more you honor your own limits, the more others will learn to honor them too. Let's not sugarcoat it. Not everyone will like your boundaries. People who've grown used to the old version of you, the overcommitted, over-accommodating version, might resist the change. They might accuse you of being distant, selfish, or not the same. But that's okay, because their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your peace and live a life aligned with your values. Here's something powerful I want you to sit with. Every time you set a boundary, you're teaching the world how to treat you. You're declaring, this is what I will allow, this is what I won't. This is how I respect myself, and I expect the same in return. And you know what? That's not cold. That's courageous. I want to leave you with one last visual. Imagine your life as a house. A beautiful, unique house that you've spent years building. Would you leave the front door wide open, letting anyone walk in, rearrange the furniture, or drain the electricity? Of course not. You'd protect it. You'd welcome guests, but on your terms. You'd lock the door at night. You'd keep it clean, sacred, safe. Your mind, your time, your energy. They deserve the same respect. Boundaries are the locks on that door. Not to shut the world out, but to let the right things in. So today I invite you to ask yourself, where in your life are your boundaries too loose or non-existent? What are you tolerating that quietly robs you of peace? And what would it feel like to lovingly and but firmly say no more? You don't need to change everything overnight. Just start with one boundary, one clear no, one honest statement about your needs, and little by little, watch how your life transforms, not because others change, but because you finally do. Because here's the truth. Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to a life of greater clarity, focus, and peace. And in a world that's constantly pulling you in every direction, that kind of peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Part 3. How to say no without guilt, fear, or regret. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said yes, but really wanted to say no? Maybe it was a favor at work. Maybe it was another social event you didn't have the energy for. Maybe it was a family obligation that left you feeling drained. And afterward you felt it, that quiet frustration with yourself. Not because someone asked, but because you agreed, even though something in your gut told you not to. Why is it so hard to say no? We all want to be kind, to be liked, to keep the peace. But somewhere along the way, many of us confused being agreeable with being available at all times. And that's where the inner conflict begins. Saying no isn't the problem. What is the problem? Is everything we believe it might cost us. We fear seeming rude or selfish. We worry we'll hurt someone's feelings. We're terrified of missing out, being rejected, or being labeled difficult. But here's a Stoic truth, and it's one worth tattooing on your mind. If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Epictetus, because personal growth often means disappointing others so you don't keep disappointing yourself. Let's take a step back. Where do these fears really come from? Part of it is cultural. From a young age, many of us were taught to associate goodness with compliance. We were praised for saying yes. We were warned about being difficult. We were told, directly or indirectly, that our value comes from being needed. But Stoicism flips that idea on its head. The Stoics didn't measure virtue by how many people they pleased. They measured it by how well a person lived in alignment with their values, regardless of outside opinion. So, how do we reclaim the ability to say no with confidence, compassion, and clarity?
Let's talk about some real strategies that you can use starting today. Shift your inner script. Before you ever open your mouth to say no, you need to challenge the internal narrative that makes you afraid of it. Instead of thinking, if
I say no, they'll be upset. Try asking, if I say yes, will I be upset with myself? Stoic philosophy teaches that our peace is not determined by others, but by the choices we make within ourselves. So ask yourself, is this decision in service of my peace or my people-pleasing? Be firm, but kind. You don't need to be cold, to be clear, and you don't need to justify your decision with long-winded explanations. Here are a few examples of simple, respectful no's that work. I really appreciate the offer, but I'll have to pass this time. Thanks for thinking of me, but I won't be able to make it. That doesn't align with my current priorities, so I'll have to decline. Notice the tone. It's polite, but firm. There's no apology, no over-explaining, just respectful, honesty, and that's powerful. Use alternatives. When appropriate, sometimes offering an alternative can soften the delivery, especially when you care about the relationship. You might say, I can't commit to this project, but I'd be happy to review it next week. Or, I won't be able to make it to the event, but let's schedule a one-on-one catch-up soon. But here's the catch. Only offer alternatives if they're genuine. Don't use them as a buffer just to make yourself feel more comfortable about saying no. Remember, you're not responsible for managing other people's feelings. You're responsible for protecting your focus and integrity. Practice saying no in low stakes moments. Like any skill, saying no takes practice. Start small. The next time a store clerk asks if you want to open a credit card, say no. The next time someone offers something you don't want, politely decline. Every no you practice strengthens the muscle for when it really matters. And when the bigger asks come, the ones that challenge your values, your boundaries, your well-being, you'll be ready. Stop over-explaining one of the biggest traps we fall into is feeling like we owe people long explanations for our choices. We say things like, I'd love to help, but I have this other thing, and then I'm doing that. And then maybe I can, but probably not. It sounds hesitant, uncertain, and it invites people to challenge you. Instead, embrace the Stoic mindset. You don't owe everyone access to your inner life. A simple, confident no thank you is more than enough. Let's go even deeper. What if someone pushes back? What if they question your boundaries? What if they say, but why not? Here's the truth. You are allowed to disappoint others. Let me say that again. You are allowed to disappoint others, and as long as you're not disappointing yourself. This is not permission to be careless or disrespectful. It's a reminder that your worth is not tied to how convenient you are to other people. And here's something that often surprises people. When you start saying no clearly and consistently, people respect you more. Why? Because clarity breeds trust. When others know where you stand, they stop guessing, they stop testing you. They start respecting your time and presence. You become someone who values themselves more, and that's magnetic. Before we wrap up, let's anchor this in Stoic wisdom one more time. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Let's apply that to your time, your energy, your life. If a yes doesn't feel right, don't give it. If a no is what you truly mean, say it and stand by it. Because the life you're building depends on what you allow in and what you protect yourself from. So here's your challenge for today. Say no to something small without apology. Say it kindly. Say it clearly. And then walk away with peace. And next time you're tempted to say yes, Just to avoid discomfort, remember, every time you say no to something misaligned, you say yes to something deeper, your freedom. This isn't about being difficult. It's about being deliberate, and in a world full of noise, distraction, and endless demands, that might just be one of the most radical things you can do. Part 4, the power of no, a path to peace and fulfillment. So, after everything we've talked about, the fears, the boundaries, the strategies, let's come back to one simple question. What happens when you finally start saying no? What really changes? You might think it's just about clearing your schedule, having a little more free time. But no, it's so much deeper than that. Because when you begin to say no from a place of clarity and purpose, something inside you shifts. And for the first time in a long time, you feel free. Saying no is not just about what you're turning down, it's about what you're finally making space for. Let me explain. When you stop overcommitting, your stress levels drop. Your anxiety isn't constantly fueled by deadlines you didn't want to agree to in the first place. You stop waking up already behind, already tired, already resentful. Instead, you wake up with intention. You move through your day with focus and, perhaps most importantly, you begin to reconnect with yourself. There's something powerful that happens when your schedule aligns with your soul. You get your time back. You get your energy back. But even more than that, you get your self-respect back. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You start driving, and that's when peace shows up. Not the kind of peace you find on a beach vacation or during a quiet evening, though those are nice, but the kind of peace that lives inside you. That steady voice that says, I'm living in alignment. I'm no longer abandoning myself to please others. That's the kind of peace the Stoics pursued. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, ruled an empire while facing enormous pressure. Yet in his meditations, he constantly reminded himself not to be distracted by noise, not to be pulled by the desires of others, not to waste his energy on what did not matter. He wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" That's the wisdom of no. It filters the unnecessary. It prioritizes the essential. It cultivates peace, and not just for today, but for a lifetime. And this principle, it's not just theory. It's transforming real lives, every single day. Take Emily, a former executive in her 40s. She spent years saying yes to everything. Promotions, projects, networking events. Until one day she realized she didn't recognize herself anymore. She started getting sick. Burnout hit hard. Her relationship suffered, so she made a radical choice. She began saying no to unnecessary meetings, to weekend work, to friendships that no longer felt mutual, and slowly, her life began to breathe again. She didn't lose respect. She gained it. She didn't miss out. She reconnected. She says now, saying no gave me my life back, piece by piece. Or consider James, a single father who used to run himself ragged trying to be everything for everyone. When he started setting boundaries, even simple ones like not answering work emails after dinner, he saw something unexpected. His stress dropped, his health improved, and his son began to smile more because Dad was present. Sometimes the smallest no has the biggest ripple effect. So here's what I want you to take from this. Every time you say no to something misaligned, you say yes to something better. Yes to your health. Yes to your focus. Yes to deep, meaningful relationships. Yes to a version of you that is calm, clear, and centered. That's what Stoicism is really about. Not suppressing your emotions, not detaching from the world, but standing firm in what matters and letting go of what doesn't. Now, you might be wondering, but what if I disappoint someone? What if they don't understand? What if they leave? And my honest answer is this: yes, that might happen. Not everyone will understand the new you. Not everyone will applaud your boundaries, but those who love you, truly love you will learn to respect them. And those who don't, maybe their season in your life has simply passed. As the Stoics taught, we control our choices, not other people's reactions, and if keeping your peace means disappointing someone else, that's a trade worth making. So let's turn this into action. I want to leave you with a small but powerful challenge. Within the next 24 hours, say no to one thing that doesn't serve you. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be turning down a phone call you don't have the energy for, saying no to that third social event this week, skipping that obligation that was never really yours in the first place. Say it gently. Say it clearly, but say it because you mean it. Then pause and notice what comes next. That lightness in your chest, that sigh of relief, that sense of ownership. That's what it feels like to honor your time, to protect your peace, to live like a modern Stoic. Because at the end of the day, your time is your life, and your life deserves to be lived on purpose. So the next time you feel that pull, to say yes out of guilt, fear, or habit, pause. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Does this serve my values? Will this help me live the life I truly want? And if the answer is no, then say it, and say it with grace. Because that one word might just be the beginning of your most peaceful chapter yet. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's this. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to earn your rest. And you certainly don't need to say yes just to be worthy. Your peace matters, your time matters, and your ability to say no, with clarity and calm, is a skill that will serve you for the rest of your life. So start today. Say no, once boldly, even if it's just in a small moment. You might be surprised how much lighter life begins to feel. Now I'd love to hear from you. What's one situation in your life where you know you need to start saying no? Drop it in the comments below. You might inspire someone else with your courage. If you found this video helpful, give it a like. And if you're on a journey to live more intentionally, through the lens of Stoic philosophy and modern self-mastery, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more content coming to help you reclaim your time, your mind, and your power. Until next time, live wisely, live simply, and never forget, every peaceful life begins with a purposeful no.